What if your expensive Intel CPU is secretly sabotaging your performance? Let's talk. If your shiny new Intel chip sometimes behaves more like an overworked intern than a top-tier processor, you're not imagining things. Here are reasons why. Overclocking has been the roller coaster ride since Intel's 12th Gen Core i9 and continues with the brand new Core Ultra 9 285K. These chips are marketed as enthusiast-grade, overclocking-capable powerhouses, but they start acting unstable under workloads, resulting in blue screens of death, random restarts, stutters, thermal throttling, and crashes. This still occurs even when overclockers keep voltages and frequency reasonable. This problem started when the Big Little Core architecture was introduced with the 12th generation Alder Lake. Since then, Intel kept through in more performance cores, efficiency cores, cache, and lanes. The instability became more pronounced with each generation as Intel pushed base power limits higher. Intel also allows motherboard partners to override the already generous defaults. For many users, overclocking is no longer fun. When you fire up your rig, set a mild XMP and decent frequency overclock, your PC may start acting like it's dazed. Games crash, productivity app stalls, and any stress test may become your literal stress. If you still decide to overclock, expect random blue screen of deaths right before a deadline. Even for casual overclockers, it may feel like a refund-worthy experience. You may think that after 3 generations and a full rebrand to Core Ultra, Intel would have ironed this issue out. But Intel is already obsessed with squeezing every ounce of performance from its silicon to keep pace with AMD. Intel always boosts clocks that brush against the CPU's thermal ceiling, and their default settings are anything but conservative. To resolve this, Intel needs a full top-down reevaluation on how it balances performance, power, and stability. They need to enforce realistic default settings that prioritize rock-solid behavior across all motherboards. They need to stop pretending XMP is some exotic feature only used by pro overclockers, because today everyone enables it. So Intel must validate it properly for real-world uses. Intel CPUs have incredible potential, but you may fully utilize it only after a couple of BIOS flashes, 6 reboots, and a power limit adjustment. Early BIOS versions that come with your motherboard may contain broken configurations, like power limits set too low and Intel application optimization turned off. So while your new PC is technically ready, its actual performance may vary wildly. This problem is caused by Intel's increasingly complex CPU architectures, while motherboard vendors trying to outdo each other with every obscure tweak possible. Back in the simpler days of Sandy Bridge or Skylake, the BIOS mostly handled basic duties like voltage, memory timings, and boot priorities. Now it needs to juggle hybrid core schedulers, deep power state tuning, and game-specific acceleration as well. For the average user, this BIOS lottery can be a real annoyance. Most users aren't expecting to update firmware on day one just to get the CPU to act like it's supposed to. Many reviewers and early adopters base their benchmarks on launch firmware. That leads to inconsistent reviews and buyer confusion, and you may see Reddit threads asking why their chips are 20% slower than certain benchmarks. Intel still can't solve this due to the inconsistent BIOS quality. Intel only provides microcode documentation and suggested configurations, but it's up to the motherboard partners to interpret all that and develop firmware to optimize performance. But when each motherboard vendor has their own way of doing things to meet their own marketing gimmicks, consistency will easily go right out the window. To resolve this issue, Intel needs to enforce standardization. Intel must take a firmer hand in defining performance baselines, and there are no more optional PO implementations. Every motherboard, regardless of vendor, should adhere to a default profile that delivers consistent performance within a known thermal and power envelope. If possible, Intel should certify all BIOS versions at launch, although that means delaying releases. Despite the hype around Intel's P-Core, E-Core, and now NPU, the harsh truth is that many game developers still don't know what to do with such arrangement. Thread scheduling is meant to put the important stuff on the fast core, but this plan often misfires in baffling ways. This problem started with Alder Lake's Big Little architecture. Windows still doesn't quite know how to divvy up the heavy workload, and developers are often clueless as well. Raptor Lake and newer generations followed suit, but they still can't sort things out. You could be running a $600 CPU and still getting uneven performance in AAA games that don't know how to use the Intel CPU's hybrid layout. Your game may stutter when loading new areas because the file input-output thread got dumped on an E-core that's too busy napping. At this moment, Intel still hasn't required developers to optimize their games for hybrid CPU designs, and even when they do partner with developers, the results will likely still be hit or miss. Also, Windows 11 thread director support is still not dependable enough to distribute loads properly. Intel has to get a lot more aggressive. That means having a tighter collaboration with Microsoft. It is not just about recommending scheduler changes, but also building core-specific APIs into DirectX and Windows. This will allow game developers to use assets more easily.